a 3% and 4% increase, both modest and within the cost of living range. I've accounted for operating expenses with conservative inflation estimates and continue to be resource conscious. When traveling, I use affordable lodging, I share rides when possible, and I do everything I can do to stretch our county dollars. Next slide. So here's my ask: help me maintain the momentum we've built, support a modest budget increase so we can expand outreach, improve turnaround times, and help more veterans get the care and compensation they deserve. This isn't about just increasing my salary. It's about increasing what we can deliver as a county. Your support today means more resources for our residents, less pressure on your budget tomorrow, and a stronger, healthier community for all of us. Next slide. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your continued commitment to Yankton County's veterans. Pending any questions, this concludes my 2026 budget request.
Again, just like to say thank you. Again, a veteran service officer is a requirement, a mandate by state law. And I guess there's two ways we can look at it. Is I think we're all in agreement that we owe it to the men and women who put their lives on the line to keep us free, to take care of them. And so we're one of the very few counties in the state that has a full-time veteran service officer, and I think too many counties either can't afford it or, don't staff it. I know Millette counties, their VSO is an hour or two a month, and I appreciate what you do. I know I've walked past that office, and there's almost always a line, and that's good. And I think you really changed some people's lives for the better. So just wanted to say thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Gary.
Good morning. Just like Brian had mentioned, I did a 3% and 4% cost of living budgets. That you've seen my worksheets that were attached, pretty straightforward. So basically, with the group insurance being less, and I decreased $1,000 on rentals, $1,000 on supplies because we got our 2 computers the last couple of years. And I did increase 1 on repairs and maintenance due to basically ArcGIS. The cost has risen $250 from last year, and some of the stuff we're doing with the electronic building permitting system is another $1,500 for ArcGIS maintenance that I wasn't aware I paid last year, but it was taken out of my budget, and I'm adding it for this next year. So otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if there's any questions at all.
Gary, you want to do the safety center and government building?
Sure.
Just going through, the building permits, we brought in $73,000. Is that correct?
The 24, yes.
24? That's a pretty good amount, so. Well,
Safety center and building maintenance also did the same thing, just did a straight 3% and 4%. There's going to be a little more question on the buildings here because our 2 new employees, we didn't have the insurance yet or what they were getting, and we're still working on getting the superintendent. So there might be some change there, but basically it's a straight 3 and 4% options also.
Does this include the
Where's this safety center?
issue with the generator?
government center?
Yep.
It does not at this time, and so I think the question there was whether or not that's coming out of that fund or or which fund that would even come out of for sure.
For what?
If they have to do some work on the generator at the safety
Yeah,
center.
that'd be the building fund.
Yeah, the building fund. So these are just the actual budgets for,
Okay, and going back to planning and zoning, 13,000 estimated retirement payout, what is that?
so basically it is what it is.
I-
Basically, so the plan is I plan on retiring next fall. So we were told before I'm supposed to
Let us
put
know.
that in, and so that's the payoff for it. Estimated payoff.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Are we planning on doing any more flyovers, I guess, or is that something we're doing on, is that every 3 or 4 years, or when are we doing
Yeah,
that?
that's under Michelle's
Oh, is that-
preview, who's coming
Okay,
up
I'll
here
ask-
next,
I'll
I
ask Michelle
believe,
about
so.
it. Thanks.
That comes out of data.
Yeah, that comes out of data also.
Okay. I don't have any questions, I guess. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Welcome.
Good morning. So I did a 4% increase. I can get you a 3% if you would like that. So that's basically, you know, with the salary and all that's taken out, that is what it calculates to. I did on operational expenses decrease the liability insurance. It seems like now with South Dakota Alliance, I believe we have, it can be slightly decreased. I did have to increase the professional services and fees due to communications with Napa Junction and Cargill and their balloon payment, I believe, with the TIF district. We are going to have to hire a professional appraiser to appraise that, or basically they're gonna appeal our value and it's gonna get dropped to whatever they want it to be. So I'm thinking let's be proactive and get a real value using an expert in that type of appraisal. And that is why that line item jumped that much. I did include estimates from 2 different people that do these appraisals in your packets. Other than that, I've left everything the same, hoping, you know, we are required to be state certified, and there's certain requirements that we have to travel and get education and workshops and all of that, and that's why those budget items are there, because it's part of our job. We have to legally do it. If we don't maintain that certification, we cannot be county assessors and appraisers. I feel that our office, I did, you know, obviously taking your guidance as to let's look at it, where can we cut everything, and I looked at it down to the penny, and that's why I'm not increasing, so we're just gonna go with that. But I also don't wanna under budget and be short, because that's
Yeah.
not good either.
And, you know, so the public wears, you know, we have to have your department and staff as well to assess all the properties that taxes are based on for the cities, the school board, and the counties and the townships, so another mandate. And as far as that assessment for the TIF on Napa, I think that's a really smart idea to get a third party to do that, and you guys have already done your own estimates, and
Yep, when it first came in, and that's basically been the value that it's
Okay.
been for all these years, and they've been talking to appealing, and within the TIF contract, they basically, they can appeal, but they still will have to pay X amount up until that balloon payment.
Yeah.
It's a contract, so
Yeah.
you need a lawyer's degree to
Yeah.
read it.
exactly. As far as the flyover
Yes.
that we do, and that would be, where would that be?
That
at?
comes out of the data fund, so that's
Okay.
not my budget. We are due for a flyover in 2026. We cost share with the city,
Mm-hmm.
and so there are different imagery inches available. We currently have 9-inch out in the county. And, you know what, I didn't bring that chute. The 9-inch that we have out in the county, it's not very good. It doesn't really do us any good, and they would have to send a special plane just to capture that in addition. So they are proposing going to 6-inch, which is $4,000 more per year over the 3-year contract.
How often do we do flyovers? then?
Every 3 years.
Okay, and how often does the city do it?
We're together.
Okay, okay,
It's flown
good.
at the same
Because I
time.
know at one point we were off the schedule of the city, but that's great that
Oh.
you're cooperating with
Yep.
them in that. Do you think it would be worth it to extend that schedule, or do you like the 3-year flyover?
We did
What's your
discuss
thought on
that, both the city and us,
Yeah.
and with the vendor, and it really is, 3 is really the sweet spot. 2
Mm-hmm. Okay.
isn't, there's not enough, I mean, think back 3 years.
Yeah.
The amount of growth, the amount of building, the
Yeah.
amount of changes that we've seen countywide.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's really, if you look at 4 years, it's really not helping us.
Yeah, now that makes
We're,
sense.
we're behind the
That makes
8 ball
sense.
on that then.
Okay. No, appreciate it. I think our consolidated board of equalization this year was the best one that we ever had. So I really do appreciate and thank you guys for your hard work. It went very smooth, so, and it didn't
Yeah.
go that smooth in other counties from what we heard.
We had,
so-
we had what, 17
Yeah,
appeals?
yeah.
Lincoln County had 138.
I think Pennington was 4 days,
Yeah.
stuff they had,
Yeah.
and it was, same thing that we heard too, is you have a lot of these somebody buys a big hotel and remodels it, and then they say, this is what my appeal is, and it's a big out-of-state company that they'll drop $50,000-$60,000 and sue the county to
Yep.
save $5,000 because they can afford it, so.
Yeah.
No,
And
just-
everything our office does is bound by state law,
Yep,
so,
yep.
Yep.
All right.
thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Extension,
She's on vacation.
okay?
Are we
What did
gonna?
you say?
She's on vacation.
Oh,
And I don't know if she really has to be here, cause she's gonna be gone in August.
Yeah, well, do we wanna discuss a little bit about
I don't think
this?
at this time.
Okay,
Jim?
My budget, I just figured the recommended increases for personnel services, and then
what percent did you use, Jim, do you
I
remember?
I think it was 4%.
4%?
Everything else, we went same as last year. My budget it's hard to figure because I'm working between 5 and 7 months, and we cross
Yeah.
over to the highway department, so.
Yep. You're another department that's required by law that we gotta have you, and we do appreciate all the work you do, so. Have you got the mosquito spraying for the small towns?
We
You guys-
start Wednesday.
Okay, good deal. I know that's a real important service that you guys do. So I don't have any questions, pretty lean budget.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Yours must have been ringing.
I was in there.
Oh,
Welcome.
Hello. Well, any questions right away?
Budget went down a lot. It's kind of, this is an example of where we've used up our COVID dollars, and we gotta go back to the reality of it, so.
Well, and I knew that was kind of the case. A lot of them COVID dollars got funneled towards the highway department, and I knew we needed to slim it up, so,
This is like a 2020 budget, or when was the last time you were, down to
probably
6 million.
2019, 2020.
so we're, and that's the reality that, the citizens need to realize is we're back to 2019 numbers when everything has increased fourfold. So your department especially is gonna really struggle, but.
Right.
I
And
appreciate
it'll
you.
be fine. We just got to shuffle some
Yeah,
procedures, how we do things.
What did you use
and
for,
some projects,
what did you use for, your percentage?
On the,
wages.
wages, just what Patty gave me. Salary, I put, 4.1,
Okay.
the FICA, 0.062. All that stuff was just generic from the
Okay.
Patty sheet. And like my wages, you know, I still have that, I bought a $20,000 cushion in there because of overtime. You don't know what's gonna happen with snow and storms and whatever, so, just so you know.
Yeah, and we've had that many years in a row where, 2019, the flooding, and then those big snowstorms where.
Right, and $20,000 cushion, that's
Yeah.
not much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know, that's for the whole year.
And we ask a lot of those, what year was that we spent, was that close to $1 million? Or how many hundreds of thousands we spent on snow removal, and every time we'd get it moved, it snowed again. and-
Blew from the other direction
Yeah,
and,
yeah, it was
yep,
a nightmare.
we're fortunate this last year, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the insurance, whether there's an increase there, everything, stuff like that. Publishing stayed about the same. Professional services, rentals, I bumped that down. Repairs, maintenance, bumped that down. Supplies, it's all down. The biggest numbers that went way down are the annual projects. Yeah, 'cause I put in.
And gravel,
What's that?
and gravel.
And gravel.
Do we have some stockpile?
We,
though?
we have gravel on inventory.
Yeah,
We still gotta buy gravel. Every year
yeah.
we go through a lot, so. Yeah, annual projects. This year, well, so in 2024, we used 2.3 million. I'm down to 1.2. Bridges, well, next year we have one bridge that's actually up 50,000, but that bridge is gonna cost.
Yeah.
It's in poor condition, so we gotta tend to that one.
Yeah.
Asphalt mill and overlay, well, 24, we used 912,000, and I only got 578 in it for that, so we cut that way down. That's the other thing with, cutting all the budget. Well, my 5-year plan, I pretty much gotta start all over.
Yeah. Well, that's the reality.
Equipment, we gotta stick around that close to 500, so I have 460,000 there. We gotta gotta keep, upgrading, otherwise, things aren't gonna
Yeah.
be good.
We're
Just-
in pretty good shape with what the new wheel loader, newer graders. I think most of the trucks are in decent shape. I mean, we're
We're
maintaining, right?
getting better, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we still like our whole fleet of pickups, it's not good. That's one thing. We still have a couple trucks we should replace, motor graders. So we have a 2019 motor grader with 7,100 hours already.
Jeez,
Well, that's
that's
out
a
of
lot.
warranty now.
Yeah.
So now anytime there's that exact motor grader is having issues with, one of the pivots on the rear tandems.
What's a new motor?
New motor
grader
grader's
now?
about 400,000.
400,000.
But if you trade or get rid of it at an earlier rate, you're gonna get more value
Like-
back out of the old one to pay for the new one.
Like right now, that grader's probably, 175,000.
Yeah.
And if we wait till it has 10,000 hours, then it's a $60,000 machine.
Yeah.
And then how many repairs do we have on it? Big repairs between now and then.
Yeah.
Not always, but there's always that chance, Secondary roads, I bumped that down a little bit. So yeah, total expenditures, 5,995.
And just for the public, that's about a $1.2 million decrease from last year.
Yeah. Again,
And we'll see what we can do and what we can't do with that $1.2 million less in our coffers.
You know, and there will be, with that, you know, we're used to seeing a lot of road work, you know, that's huge, cutting that much out.
Yeah. Again, yeah, we're at a 2019 budget level when costs have skyrocketed since then, so that dollar doesn't go nearly as far as it did in 2019, so we might see some effects of that, but we'll just have to.
And I've thought about it, there are different projects that we can start doing now that aren't gonna be so costly, you know, like regrading ditches and stuff. So there's plenty of work to do, it's just,
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard to do major improvements on the asphalts.
Yep.
Okay.
Good? All right, thank you, guys.
Tyler?
Yes.
Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you. Good morning. The next 5 minutes. So I sent a letter also accompanying my budget. As you can see, really the only increase that we had in our budget was for salaries and the insurance that goes with salaries. If you look at our operating expenses from this year to next year, we actually have a decrease, so that's good. We did increase our tangible goods by $2,000. Currently, every year, laws get updated, so we have to buy new books. And so that extra $2,000 that we're putting under books is to supply our office with books. They're $500 a piece. So all the attorneys get one, and then there's one for up front for the girls.
Tyler, what percentage for wages did you use?
I did a 4. I also have a 3 I can hand out too if you guys want that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll hand it out for you. Thanks.
So
Thank
there's
you.
that. Then here's the salaries for the 3.
One
Dan,
each.
do you want me to put holes in there for?
Yeah, that'd be great. Can you, do you have one you can bring out, because we got some other ones that need some holes in too.
So that's the breakdown of, you know, we're pretty much having the same budget as last year, minus the 4,000. If you look on the budget, diversion expense that's under operating expenses, we took that out completely, because we have that diversion fund now that has the diversion money in it, which is.
Has what in it?
The diversion money for the grants, the bond forfeitures, that's its own separate item in the budget. So it's not coming out of the general fund, it's its own.
Yeah. Is that like your
Fund.
fund, or is that
Yeah,
under Patty's then?
it's our fund that we started, that you guys approved to put the grant money into, to put our bond forfeitures into. So that's a self-funding program that we have. And so we can use the money out of that to pay for our diversion expenses and not rely on the general fund.
Well, according
Is
to your
that- is there a
letter,
way we could have it under-
you want to use bond
Yeah.
forfeiture money to buy a vehicle.
I want to use the diversion fund,
Is that okay?
which includes the bond forfeitures, to buy a vehicle, yes. Which would not come out of the coffers of the public fund, it come out of the grant money that's already in the fund and the bond forfeitures that are already in the fund.
And the diversion coordinator can't use any of the vehicles that are parked out here?
Which ones work?
I believe they all work.
Are they reliable?
I think so.
There's no reason they shouldn't be reliable.
I've been trying to get a vehicle for the last couple of years and it hasn't worked. And so we've had to export or use other types of services in the community to transport people. So and the bills have been paid by the county for Southeast Transit. We use the sheriff's office. But I think having our own office vehicle that can transport children to school that are on the truancy program, and also for our office use to go to trainings. Because what I've been told, some of these vehicles wouldn't be trusted to drive across the state. So that's why we've been using our personal vehicles to travel. And if we have a county vehicle, we're not paying our employees mileage to go drive their own vehicle across the state. So works in both aspects. We're using it for the diversion program, and then when needed for trainings that are now mandatory, it looks like the bar is, in the Supreme Court, are looking at adding mandatory CLEs for attorneys, so we have to go to those trainings now too, on top of our state's attorney convention or bar convention, stuff like that.
And as I understand the mandatory CLEs, which they have in Nebraska, and I'm painfully aware of, you can do them online.
You can, yes, but as an elected official, I'm also part of the State's Attorney Association. We do travel for trainings. We also lobby and peer, so travel is part of the job now, so. And then Alec does have trainings he attends for his JDAI stuff and diversion stuff with other counties, so. We're always on the go in our office, we're never standing still, and I think having that vehicle would just be more efficient, and we're not relying on, hopefully there's a vehicle available that the county has, and if not, we're using our own vehicles. So I think that'd be cost saving for the county.
And what books does your office buy?
So they're the big, thick books that have all the codes in them that have been updated, all the statutes, all the new language. I think I've shown you how, you know, they're 1,000-page books that.
Well, I know, I get them. It doesn't cost $4,000.
You don't get the same ones we do. I got bills, I submitted them, I can show you the price of them, $500 a piece, so. Any other questions?
I'll visit with you about a vehicle. I don't think at this time we need to budget for a vehicle strictly for yours, but we'll make sure that you get a vehicle made available to you,
Okay.
if that's all right.
Well, I was already gonna buy the vehicle this year, which is already in the budget, and then next year, it's just budgeted for maintenance. So that's the plan. On a different note, I'm sure all of you are aware of the prison that's being talked about in Pierre. They did a recent study comparing, you know, South Dakota prison reform and other prisons as well. And there was a chart in the handout that they presented to the committee I'd like to show you guys.
Thanks, Tyler.
So when you look at the intake of inmates from different counties that go to the prison, you can see that Minnehaha and Pennington County make up about 50% of those numbers. Roberts County was an anomaly. You know, they had 113 people go out of their county, but if you look at Yankton, we're number 5. So our caseload, as you can see, just those going to the penitentiary is in the top 5 of the state.
Tyler, is there a reason, for that? What is your opinion on why Yankton is so high for that? I mean, drugs obviously, but is there?
Drugs, obviously, and then, you know, people that come here for parole are staying because they get work release, they get jobs here, so they're staying in the community. And obviously, you know,
Yeah.
some of them don't comply with parole and they get arrested again. And you can't put them on probation, so they go back to prison.
So having HSC here and a trustee unit here and, these behavioral health and, homeless shelters and stuff, I mean, we're getting people that come to this community, and then when it doesn't work out and they get arrested, then basically they're our responsibility at that point.
We do
Only
see
if they choose to stay.
Yeah, we do see some of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you-
Okay. So-
do you
so-
know, does this survey, when it says that however many percent come from Yankton County, is that the ones that actually go to prison, or the ones that judge just sentences 5 years, suspends it on 3 years probation?
My understanding is if they get transported up to the pen and there's an intake,
So it's
That's
only
counted.
an intake?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so 5 years, 3 suspended, they're still spending 2 years in the pen. They're going. So it's, if a judge orders a penitentiary sentence, I'm assuming that's what this number is.
Wow.
So I just thought I thought it was interesting when I saw it,
Yeah,
little old Yankton.
exactly.
It's number 5 in the state when it comes to sending people to prison. So it shows, how busy we are compared to the bigger counties. We're only, what,
Well, we have more than.
16 under Lincoln County?
We have more than Brown County with Aberdeen in it, whose population is much,
Yeah.
they have 74, we have 79.
Yeah. So,
With more than peer.
you know, and Roberts is an anomaly, so I don't know if they just had a big influx in crime up there, but, you know, really then we're number 4, if you look at it, so. Any other questions on the budget? All right, thank you.
Tyler, do you have this on, you could email?
Yeah, I'll send you a report.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Paul, you're up.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, good afternoon, so with our budget, give you a preliminary, and then I'll ask you some questions. We've dropped our budget, the emergency management budget down $9,000, and the search and rescue budget just $2,000 right off the top, was taken out of the budget. Wages, we went, with just 3%. We didn't go with, I didn't do a 4, just a.
No steps, no
No
nothing on
step,
that?
just a
Good.
3%. But some of the things that we've been cutting out of our budget is that we're getting rid of some of the Zoom licenses, because there's no reason that we all need to have 2 or 3 Zoom licenses per department anymore, so we'll be down to 3. The other thing, a big project, is $3,500 is cut out of the Esri software. Being the state of South Dakota is going to that program that we used last year called Crisis Track. That's the new norm, where we used to use this before, so we'll be getting rid of that licenses. That won't be till September, but we won't renew it come that time of year. So we're taking out of that. The Verizon thing, we already discussed about with you guys when we made that change, so that was a big savings to our department and also to the county as a whole. We used to have our vehicle tracking. We put that in place back when the boats were on the river and didn't know where they were at. We were able to look on a map and see where they're at. We found out now that we can actually use the Apple air tags. So it's gonna save us about $1,700 a year getting rid of that. The I Am Responding app, we still use that. We're not getting rid of that, but what happened in years past is that my budget would pay for the entire county, and then each department would write a check to Patty for $300, and that would go back in the general fund. So we're not doing that anymore. They're gonna have to pay their own bill to the county, or to the company, rather than I'll pay our share, they gotta pay their share. That way it doesn't look so bad on our budget or reflect that cost. Even though it's being brought back in, that $1,800, it's not back into our budget. We have a program that we stream for disasters when we're using our drones and our underwater submarine called AMV video streaming. That's $1,000 a year. We're getting rid of that. And then we have our IAP software, or the stuff that we use to gather data in the Emergency Operations Center. That's $2,900. We're getting rid of that also. So that won't be around. If we have a major disaster, we may have to be looking at bringing some of that stuff back, but for right now, it's not gonna happen. It's gonna be quiet for the next 10 years, and we're not gonna worry about it. But just to let you know, though, we don't use them a lot, so we'll just get rid of it and work on whatever we ought to do. So then money's collected. This year, the LEMPG, or our local emergency money we get from the state, we're gonna receive $46,123. And I do have emails on all this from the state getting back. We have an LAPC grant coming in for $23,6410. Hazmat grant for $7,500, pre-disaster mitigation grant for $12,000, and we have a check coming in for $1,900 for pod expenses that were done this year. So some of that money will come back. Dan?
Paul, again, appreciate what, the state is cutting like a 35% of the salary reimbursement this year, is that what I understand?
Yep.
Which fund is that coming out of then?
That
Or is
would be the LEMPG,
Okay,
the big one there with that $46,000.
okay.
Last year, we got $70,000 from the state, and this year it's gonna be $46,000 from the state.
Okay, so that's, I think, just important for, the public to realize is that, for years and years, the state was, telling us to, do this with your emergency management, and then now that we did what they say, now they're cutting it by 35%. And so we're actually paying a significant more portion of that. Yeah, that's a big number that it's got cut down by, so.
So
Yeah.
with that, I mean, and like I said, we've got the emails from the state on what the costs were gonna be. I did check in the insurance, and Lynn, was I saying that right, Lynn? And I forwarded you that email, what, we're paying around 24,000 now for EMS and search and rescue, and ours would go to 31,000 if we switch to them. So, until we can work, she's gonna work on it, but this year we won't be able to make that jump. So,
I think
was
she
kinda
actually
hoping-
recommended we stay with who we have because it was if it's a better deal, that's all we were
Yep,
ever after.
right,
And-
right. And it's
and,
kinda odd though,
yeah.
the fire department of Lesterville, theirs went way up. They looked,
Yeah.
they talked to her, it cut it in half.
Yeah.
So we were hoping it would go the other way, but it didn't, so, I don't know. We must be more of a risk. So anyway, that's basically what we have in our budget. Salaries, like I said, is, we took the current, what we have and just added 3% for next year, if that's what happens. And then the FICA and stuff like Mike talked, that's all, whatever Patty recommended that we add into our budgets. But that's all I have.
Don't blame me, no.
I'm not blaming you. You sent me the letter. I just put it in there.
Paul, as
Yep.
far as search and rescue, really, again, appreciate what we do on that, but I kind of really feel we maybe need to move to some sort of a fee-based system. This is how I feel, and maybe the rest of the commissioners are different, is, we have a lot of very expensive equipment that you guys do a great job of maintaining it. I know we don't go to the other counties a lot, but we do go there, and we have a gentleman's agreement where they, they'll contribute fuel or whatever, but, my concern is we're gonna need new boats and new dive gear, and that's gonna be something on us. I see these grants drying up for the foreseeable future, and is there something we could do with, maybe a fee structure? I know last year Ed Van Gerpen here was from Bonhomme, and he didn't seem like he had an issue with it. I'm not talking about gouging our neighboring counties, but we can't be doing it for free forever, either. So is there
Right.
some sort of compromise we can work out?
We've
there,
we've
you
looked at
think?
different things and talked to other
Yeah.
counties, and some of them say, well, we don't have the money, we're not gonna pay, we'll
Yeah.
call you anyway. Or
Yeah,
if you're charging, let's just use Bonhomme $1,000 a year, and you don't charge anybody else, so why does Bonhomme have to pay?
Yeah.
And others don't want, if they don't pay, I mean, it's kind of, you pay an hourly, go on an hourly rate. How do you budget for an hourly rate if you don't, I mean, again, these are
Yeah.
questions that I can't answer.
Yeah.
I think we need to kind of sit down and,
it's a tough system, and ideally what we could do is talk to our surrounding communities and even Nebraska and say, hey, we have this great search and rescue team that's available to you, because the neighboring county, they don't have to have the gear we do because we already have it. But, my concern is these grants dry up and this money dries up, and now we need a new dive vehicle. What would that thing cost, brand new? Are we talking hundreds of thousands of dollars?
if we would.
And then, now what are we gonna do about it? So, that's a concern that I have, and the neighboring counties are saving dollars because they're not investing in the things that we have. And, that bill is gonna come due someday.
So a question I would have is like,
yeah.
you were part of that, maybe we'll come to that next one, that 8-county thing
Yeah.
you're drawn.
Yeah,
Maybe that would be a place to ask,
yeah, we
would
could,
you be willing to pay
yeah.
XYZ amount of money and then get the feel
We
of what
can-
they're doing?
we
Because
can
we've
bring
probably
it up,
been to
yeah.
every one of them counties at one time or another through the years, so.
Yeah, and the hard thing is.
Actually, that meeting will be hosted by us next
here,
time,
isn't
and
it?
it'll be here, so.
Yeah.
And that's maybe where we need to get to the ability to, charge some of that. And I was reading some of the emergency management laws. I think we're limited to charging, like $1,000 for an individual, but, do we do that when somebody is recovered, or, you can't charge somebody who doesn't have it either, but I know talking to the guys out where all the state and federal land is west, a hiker gets lost in Rapid City, the county pays for all of that.
They
and
eat it
ends
all.
up, yeah.
Yep.
Somebody jumps in the river and tries to swim across, and we have to pay for that too, but I'm looking for some long-term sustainability on this, and, you know, it's the right mentality to help your neighbors out, but, you know, they gotta be willing to help us out too. And I just fear the day when we gotta spend a couple $100,000 to upgrade you and then nobody wants to help us then, so.
I don't
what
think
the
there's any
answer is.
upgrades for me anymore.
Yeah. no.
Okay, that model's old, so.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Thanks, Paul.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Troy?
Do you have extra? No, that's okay, I mean, for.
I could color even. Well, I like that.
I like to keep it lively.
You know.
First thing, I want to start off kind of the same way and point out some cost savings that are coming up in our budget starting this year, actually. There were some things that I was able to take a look at here in the last couple of months, discontinue some services that we didn't really find necessary through Waystar, which is our clearinghouse, where we send our, basically send our invoices to for checking before they're sent out. We're discontinuing their print services. That comes up to a savings of over $5,400 a year. We're going to discontinue scheduling and some other add-ons through ESO, which is our PCR, where we do our patient care reports. We were using them for scheduling and some other add-ons that we had as well. We're going to discontinue some of that for savings of $5,300 annually. We're going to do some moving around with the scheduling, and we're going to eliminate part-time overnight shift, which is going to save us over $35,000 a year. We've done some things around the office as well, mainly covering up the thermostats to help reduce electric bill with running air conditioners. And I just also recently, about a month or so ago, a couple of months ago, I renegotiated the contract with our copy machine company. We were seeing overages with our copy machine every month that we were paying, and so I renegotiated that to include that, and that helped us with that as well.
Which one is that under, rentals?
That is under the rentals, yes.
Gary, do we own the machines here, or do we rent them in this building? Because I know if,
I own ours, but some of the
okay.
others are leased.
Patty, how does that work? Do we
For-
own most of them or rent the copy machines and all that stuff?
We rent ours. I would love to buy it outright.
Treasurer and auditor, we rent, we buy.
Okay, it probably depends on the volume. Have you looked at maybe a purchase as opposed to a rent on those, or?
Yeah, I think a purchase for the size of a copy machine that we use and for as much as we use it, you know, I think
Okay.
we were looking at a purchase would be $20,000 to $30,000 for a copy machine. So I think that we're probably better
Yeah,
off at this
it depends
point.
on, yeah, how much you use it
Yeah,
too, so.
exactly.
You know, and we have, especially around elections too, we
Yeah.
make a lot of copies, and we still make a lot of copies.
So if you take a look at that first page of that handout, the current salary matrix, and the color coding was to kind of show the equivalent positions across each of the different departments and kind of give you an idea of where we're standing at. We're in the far left column there. You can see that our ambulance administrator is up with most of the other administrators of the departments, appropriately placed, I think, where it should be at this point. It's pretty competitive pay. But then you can see there's quite a long gap that goes down to the next level of pay. We go from a grade 12 all the way down to a grade 5 before we start seeing the rest of the employees in there. And it's kind of, you'll notice that it looks like our employees have kind of been pushed way down into a corner down there and not really spread out very well. Part of the issue that we're having with this right now, as you recall, a year and a half ago when you guys approved the $1.50 raise for our employees. Now what's happening is as those employees get moved up to where they're supposed to be in the pay matrix, when they take their step up, Now they're getting pushed all the way to the end of their grades, and there's not much room for them to continue to get pay raises with the pay grades. It's also been a kind of a confusing mess. There was just some things that really need to be straightened out on that. So if you take a look at the second page behind that, what I did was I kind of pulled those positions out a little bit and placed them a little bit more appropriately to where they would appear on the matrix with
Are you in red, or
with the
which
corresponding
color are you
positions.
in?
What's that?
Which color are you on this one then?
My position is the dark blue position, the deputy administrator, which starts at the grade 8. We have an FTO supervisor. There's currently nobody in that position. The last employee we had in that position decided to step away from it, and we have now refilled that. The other position there is the paramedic is in the red. Those are our full-time paramedics and part-time paramedics. And then in the white there, you see advanced EMT. That doesn't even appear on the matrix. We have advanced EMTs on our roster. They don't even appear on the matrix as it is now. I think that our billing clerks could move up one step on that matrix because they've really done a lot of good work over the last year especially, but they do a lot of hard work over there to make sure that we're getting those invoices paid. EMTs, and then down at the bottom there, the EMR and ambulance operators. Again, those were not on the previous matrix, emergency medical responder and ambulance operators, so those need to be included as well. This is not a pay raise. It's just putting them where they belong on the matrix without adding the $1.50 an hour. The pay is basically staying the same for them. It's just, instead of having them all the way at the end of that particular grade in the steps, it moves them up a little bit farther so that they have room as they get their step-ups to get a pay raise year by year. And the reality is that right now, out of our 13 full-time employees, only 3 of those employees have been with us for more than 3 years. So we're really not moving too far to the end of that. And that's just kind of the reality of what we're doing right now. We're seeing employees that don't necessarily stick around as long as they used to. So only 3 of our 13 full-time staff have been with us longer than 3 years. And as you know, we do have one who's actually leaving. Brenda has been with us for about 11 years, and she is retiring at the end of next month. So we'll have a new person in the building as well.
How many part-times do you have?
We have about 20 part-time right now, right at 20. So that's the recommendation that I have for that. On the next page, you can kind of see how that plays out on the current and proposed grades on that wage matrix. For an EMT, right now their pay is between $19.51 and $24.34, depending on which step that they're on. That really wouldn't change much at all. For the paramedics, that would go from a starting of $20.86 an hour, starting instead at $22.38 an hour on the proposed grade, so that would increase just a little bit. The issue right now is that our paramedics and our EMTs are really close. They're only just one grade apart, and there's been some times when the EMTs have almost surpassed the paramedics in the pay scale because of the step-ups. But there's a lot more of a gap there when it comes to their training and their education and the skills that they can do as well. So you can see under that our current employees who are working for us, our full-time employees, if you add the 3% to their current wages, they would land at somewhere between $20.66 and $21.96 an hour. Paramedics, if you increase their wages at the 3% for next year's budget, they would land somewhere between $21.69 and $25.52 per hour. North Sioux City right now is paying $28 an hour for starting paramedics, and they've been advertising for quite a while. It's really not always about the pay. It's kind of the service itself and how many calls they run and how busy they are, and there's a lot of other factors in that, but they've been offering a $28 an hour wage, which they've been advertising for quite a while. Vermillion starts out at about $19.84 an hour, and then Mitchell Fire and EMS runs about $60,000 annually. They pay, their employees are salaried instead of hourly. Any questions about the wage matrix? If not, Dan had asked me also to bring some of the revenue numbers, and so that's what you see next in the middle of that page here, 2025 revenue. Through, actually just earlier this week, our revenue is at $250,089. That's actually for the quarter. That's not from January. That's actually just for this quarter.
Where are you at? on this?
Right in the middle of, it's on this page right here, Dan.
Okay.
So the 250,089 is actually, it says from January 1st through the 24th of June. That's actually just the second quarter. That should say it should say April 1st through then. So it's April, May, and June. That does not include, that does not include all of the revenue in June. As you recall, in the first quarter, in my quarterly report, I told you that we had revenue of about 260,000 for the first quarter of this year, and we're almost right at that. I think we're probably going to meet or exceed that for the second quarter. So we're going to be over $500,000 for revenue for the first half of this year. And if you take a look then at our actual expenses, then that is actually for almost the first half of this year. It's through May. Our revenue's at 468,000, almost 600, and so far we've used 148,997 out of our budget, and that's coming up to a cost of $6.34 per taxpayer for the first 5 months of this year. One of the things you'll see in our budget is that it does increase the CPI plus growth of 4.1%. It's about a $60,000 increase from last year, almost exactly $60,000. You'll notice as you're looking at the salary that the actual salaries being paid out on that budget actually is just slightly decreased. There were some issues with last year's budget that needed to be corrected, and if you start looking down those lines, in the retirement, workman's comp, and the group insurance, I had to increase those quite a bit because those numbers were way low for this year. They're not falling in line the way they're supposed to, and so those numbers had to increase quite a bit. It's corrected for 2025. Everything else, I think, is just some general increases. Any questions on that part of it?
Asking for a new ambulance too on the back page.
So what I did was, as you recall, back in December, you guys were presented a quote for a remount and a brand-new ambulance from Aero Manufacturing, which is the company that has been doing our remounts for us. I did contact them earlier, or late last week, and earlier this week they sent me an updated quote. What we're looking at for the need right now is a remount on an ambulance. They are going to honor that same price that they gave us 6 months ago of remounting the ambulance that we have in our garage. It needs to be remounted. You can see that the costs that they had is $194,000. That's on the last page of that packet that I gave you. $194,663 plus a $20,000 discount for being a repeat customer. So the actual cost would be $174,663. We can also install the power load while it's there if we want to for an additional $31,490, which would put that price at $206,000. That's exactly the same price that they gave us 6 months ago. The situation that we have right now is in our accumulated fund that we have. We haven't we haven't put any money into it for the last couple of years. That fund is currently sitting at $171,000. We're only about $5,000 short of getting that ambulance remounted. Aero has told me that they actually have one chassis sitting there at their factory that we can purchase from them. He said if we don't do that, we're going to end up with a 2026 chassis having to be ordered. The price is going to go up on the new chassis. He doesn't know what that is yet. It's going to depend on the manufacturer, but the price will go up on the chassis. And they're also having a supply issue right now with the rear wheels, not the tires, the rear wheels. And he said that's been causing some of their orders that have been put in to be delayed by up to a year before the ambulance can even be finished. Right now, if we were to go ahead with this remount, He said he can push it back so that the ambulance would be finished right about the first of the year so that we could take it out of our 2026 budget. If we wanted to add that extra $30,000 in there for the installation of the power load system. They will work with us and do whatever we need to do, but we have that opportunity right now to get that chassis.
We're going from what year to the 2024? What year chassis is on that now?
The one that we would remount is a 2015 chassis, so we would
2015
gain 10 years.
And I see you're wanting to go to a 6.6 liter V8 gas engine as opposed to a diesel.
Yep.
Is the 8 liter an option on that? Because and the reason I say that is that is a large vehicle going down the road at sustained speeds, and from what I've seen, most gasoline engines, they're not as robust as a diesel engine, and
So-
the fuel efficiency is gonna be terrible on that.
So most ambulance services now are going to gas because with the new DEF systems
Yeah,
on them systems, and they sit out in a place for an hour and a half idling, the DEF, there's more DEF replacement stuff that has to take place on an ambulance that's running on diesel now than what
Yeah.
they're gas. So most ambulance services are going to gas engines
but,
for that reason.
but costs are gonna go up, probably by 20%.
I don't know that. This is the recommendation of Aero, and they do a lot of remounts. They build a lot of ambulances year by year. They've got ambulances all over the country that they've built, and they've been going to the gas engines just because of the issues that John
That'll be
described.
our only gas ambulance.
That would be
right?
our only
And
gas ambulance.
What I'm saying, though, is you get somebody who's, used to filling up with the diesel, and they're tired, and that does happen, especially.
I agree.
So I don't,
I agree,
it's gonna
but-
have to be completely.
But at some
clear
point in
that
time, we're gonna have to switch from diesel to gas units, and
If
Well, here's-
only we could get rid of DEF, we wouldn't have this problem.
Here's the fix for that though, Dan, is
Yeah.
that we fuel up at the city shop,
Yeah.
and they give us those key fobs, and those fobs are programmed so that according to the vehicle, it will only allow you to dispense
Okay.
either diesel or fuel, depending on what type of an engine it has. So if somebody tries to dispense gas into a diesel ambulance right now, it won't let it, it won't turn the pump on.
That's actually a great feature. And as a government entity, they can't opt out of DEF or anything like that is that an option? I
it's-
know military vehicles don't
It
have
depends on
that.
who you talk to, but that's gonna cost $2,500 per truck to do
I
that,
think
at least.
that'd be well worth it. I mean,
And just
tell you
to
the truth.
give you an idea, to kind of back up what John said, that's probably the most common issue that we have with the ambulances is to do with the exhaust and the DEF. This ambulance that we're talking about remounting was in the shop on Monday with a DEF-related problem. They fixed an injector, and this morning, the issue came back, and it will be in the shop again on Monday because of a DEF problem. So it's just a continuous fight with those diesels, and that's why everybody's going to gas now instead.
So how many ambulances do we have?
We have 4 ambulances, and they're all diesels.
So there'd be no way, I mean, I fully agree, we need to have a couple really dependable ones for transfers. And then could we have like the backup ambulances more for local, to try to save some funding?
We kind of do that right now. The thing is that we have to kind of watch the mileage on them, and we have an ambulance that we just got that's a 2023 chassis, that we kind of keep that in the back of the garage right now to keep the mileage a little bit lower on it, so it lasts us longer, because I know it's going to have to last us another 12 years or more. The ambulance that we're talking about replacing right now, and the other one that is just 1 year newer, a 2016 chassis, they both have 140,000 miles on them at this point, and that's where we're kind of starting to see some issues pop up. We do have one other ambulance that we keep in the back of the garage. It's a different manufacturer, and we use that just for transporting interfacility from Yankton to either Sioux Falls, Sioux City, Norfolk. We use that for the long-distance transfers.
So we're looking at an income of, you're expecting about what, $1.1 million that would come in as revenue?
I think we'll be pretty close to where we were last year, yes.
I'd be very interested in that. And is that number, do you feel that number is higher because of the bill collector we had? And, I guess I don't want us to get think that that number is always gonna be there if it's not, cause that new bill collector obviously is gonna maybe bring some more revenue in. But on the second part of that is in 2026, there is gonna be proposed federal cuts and then, an amendment on the ballot in, June to get rid of is it Medicaid? And
Medicaid changes, yep.
and Medicaid changes will be a catastrophe for the ambulance if a bunch of people go from having some form of insurance to none. I agree that people should work. My issue is when they choose not to and now they don't have any insurance, it goes from some reimbursement to zero reimbursement for us. And I'm wondering how, if we can calculate that, how that's gonna affect us. Because it's not gonna help us, I know that.
No, it's not, and we just have to kind of wait and see what exactly those changes are gonna be before we really know how that's going to affect us. But if you do, you probably have already noticed that second to the last page in the packet, that is the report from AAA since we've had them in 2021.
Yeah.
And you can see in that first column, the beginning balance of 466,603, and then kind of in the middle where it says gross result, 47,477, that's how much that they've collected for us over the course of about 5 years.
This is that, okay. And now is that in these numbers here?
That's included in the revenue,
Okay.
yes, it is.
And here's my concern
This
with that.
47,000 wasn't collected all in 1 year, though.
No, that's over the course of 5 years. It's not a lot. And they keep 25% of what they collect as well out of our bills. Just as an example, earlier this year, just a couple of months ago, we had a patient's estate come into our office to settle a bill that had been sent to collections in the amount of $20,000. They gave the money to us and made the check out to us, but since we had the contract with them, we had to give 25% of that to them,
That's-
even though they didn't collect
That's
it. We didn't.
baloney, yeah.
Yeah. So,
One other thing I think we should discuss is, we did have that ambulance study, and how old is that building you guys are in?
that's the other thing is, the
100
capital expenses.
Plus years? And
The buildings, yeah, it's 120 years probably at least.
And we have to be looking at that. I may have a different opinion than a lot of you guys, but if Yankton County is gonna maintain an ambulance, we have to be planning for the future. I don't know if you guys, 10 years from now, are you gonna be able to be in that building? I don't know.
No,
And so.
We're not. We've
we're
already
not-
outgrown
We're
it.
not putting any money away for it. If we're gonna keep it, we just need to be realistic about it, and so
Right.
we'll probably, none of us will be here.
So here's one response to, if our legislatures would support the bill that was presented in the last legislative session to make ambulance services essential, as is fire departments and sheriffs and police departments, that would make a huge difference in the results of looking at possibly a new building or other revenue coming in from other municipalities.
yes.
So,
But again, the reason that failed is because
but it
it was an
wasn't,
unfunded
I don't know
mandate.
where I don't know, I don't even understand how they come up with that it was an unfunded mandate.
Well,
Because cities and municipalities can contract with an ambulance service, whether it's for $1 a year or for $100,000 a year.
Yeah, we're hoping they revisit that again at the upcoming legislative session. I don't know what it's gonna look like though.
There's a summer study on emergency medical services. I think that meets, is it next week? And I guess we'll be keeping in contact with that.
Yeah.
I know Eric Emery is on that one as well, but
And Tim Reed is also on.
I just, I'm concerned about, we know that long-term sustainability, again, appreciate what all you guys do, but long-term sustainability of particularly this department is in limbo with the building that they have is old. It's too small. We project services are gonna probably pretty significantly increase in the next 10 years, certainly in the next 20 years. Medicaid, Medicare costs are continuing to go down. You know, we're looking at proposing $1.5 million. That's gonna be roughly 10% of our entire budget for the county. Granted, there'll be revenue coming in, but this is a choice that we're making for that. And I just think we need to have a serious conversation and a long-term funding solution to keep the ambulance going. That's what I'd like to see. Nobody's talking about getting rid of it, but there are different options out there to build a facility that's adequate, to staff it properly, to pay employees where they're not gonna leave every 6 months. And we're doing the same thing year after year and expecting different results, and we're not gonna get those, so.
Well,
Like I
we
said.
have done something different. We've gone from losing $600,000 or $700,000 a year to only losing $285,000 a
I
year.
mean,
So that's a
That-
fairly
that-
large improvement
that's an
over the last year.
an estimate, but I feel those numbers are slightly skewed because our billing company is pulling in billing from 4 years ago.
No, they're not.
and
Not
bringing it-
anymore. No,
well,
not anymore. We're not, Dan.
But where
That's-
did
We're
that-
done with that.
When did that come in the 2024? So
If you look at
No,
the,
2020, yes, in 2024, and I got those numbers on there for you.
Yeah.
In
And
2024, our actual expenses were $1,410,664. Our revenue was $1,124,787, and that was a cost to the taxpayers of $285,877 in 2024. That's a cost per resident of $12.16 last year. Again, if you take a look at the numbers for this year, we're right on track with that. We have brought in just over, we're gonna be bringing in just over $500,000 in the first half of this year. So, you know, it looks like that revenue is right on track. Our expenses are still gonna be about the same. So I would suspect that, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we're gonna be at 300,000 or less for cost to taxpayers this year as well. And we have collected just about everything that we can from the QMC debacle.
what would you propose we start putting away for a new building then? That, I think we all agree, and that maybe somebody don't, but we all agree we need to start looking at transitioning to a facility that's not 100+ years old. And that's big enough. So what should we put in this budget? I mean, if we're gonna keep the ambulance, fine, that's our board decision. But we also need to do a good job of planning for the future, which, I mean, does anybody think we can still be in that building 10 years from now, 20 years from now? I don't.
well, our jail, the bond for our jail is done this year. If the ambulance service and emergency management services would be made essential, then we would be able to do a bond to build a new building and replace the levy for the jail with to build a new building for the ambulance service. But as long as it's not an essential service, that eliminates that
Yeah.
process.
And
So I agree, we need to plan for the future for a building, and what is that number? Do we put $10,000 a year into a special fund?
I
That's
don't-
gonna take forever to build a new building.
I don't, well, but that's my point is if we're gonna keep this, we need to do right by these guys and get them a proper facility.
Look, guys, we don't even know at this point in time whether we have $10,000 to put in a new
Yeah.
building. So this discussion is something that's gonna have to take place in the next coming year, because we're dealing with the ambulance and lots of issues. And, we aren't gonna make a decision on building a new building. I acknowledge
Yeah.
what you're saying, Dan. We need to think about that in a long-term plan in the future, but today,
Yeah, I can agree
today
with
it's
that.
not necessary.
Okay,
All right, well, I don't have any more questions, but, you know, again, appreciate what you guys do, and, you got a tough job.
you.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Preston,
Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Last year I went first and now I'm going last, so. Sheriff Chrissy, this is my third year in office, and so I gave you guys, or I gave a budget proposal for 2026 to Patty. There you go. Where were you at, Wanda? I hit my mic, so,
There you go.
She's off her game today.
yeah. Too
I was
focused.
looking at his plethora of information.
Oh, good. All right, so if you guys go ahead and just move to page 3.
They're not, oh, there it is.
Yeah, on the bottom there. So what I did is I just did a number of calls for service, and I dated it back from 2018 to 2024, and then 2025, obviously, we're halfway through the year, but want to give you guys some statistical numbers of the amount of calls for service that we're taking, and then the reports that we're also taking. Now mind you, that traffic stops are also included in the calls for service, but. Any
What is
questions?
it without traffic stops?
I could check, but,
Okay.
so, any questions on page 3? Bottom right corner picture, there's a picture of one of our deputies doing the AED training, so I know there's a question a while back, about the AEDs, but,
Do you,
yeah,
do you have an estimate on what your 2025 number is gonna be based on, you know, I guess, just so we all realize this, calls are shooting up like pretty significantly if you look at from 2022 to 2024. I mean, not quite, but, you know, almost doubled. And do you see that trend continuing to, I don't see you taking less calls, is what I'm saying. And that's, you know, maybe that's something we just relay to the public because they don't have this, is, you know, calls are really going up pretty significantly.
yeah, and I think, you know, like I said, traffic stops are also included in there, but, the lake area obviously picks up a lot. A lot of our traffic goes out to the lake area. We did apply for the South Dakota Highway Safety Grant, so we actually pay our deputies to go out on patrol extra for specific traffic stops, like for DUI saturation, or if it's speed and seatbelt saturations. But that overtime cost is paid by the South Dakota Highway Safety Grant. But yeah, the lake area obviously has really created a lot more work for us. But
Well, if you just double the 24 to 25, because we're half done with 25,
Yeah,
it's gonna be 48, so that's 300 more
yeah.
calls.
And then, you know, you look at law enforcement a long time ago, when you have cell phones, people are more prevalent to call things in. Even if a deputy's not in the area, it's still a call for service, and we still kind of drive out in that area to see if we can locate a vehicle or, but there's a lot more documenting going on. Dispatch center, obviously, I think last year when the city came in, they asked, you know, for the 911 funds, because their calls for service also go up within the city as well. But I just kind of give you a little idea of, and then the reports taken. So like if there's an actual case that we have to follow up on, so like, you know, if it's a fraud case, we open up the report, and then we write the report. We have the investigator or the deputy follow through on the fraud claim. And so the reports taken is where the deputy's actually creating a case report or writing a ticket or whatnot. Any questions on page 3?
No.
Okay. Page 4, so this will be, so in 2025 budget, the sheriff's office didn't request any funds for any new patrol vehicles. So in fiscal 2026, we would request $205,000, and that would replace 3 patrol vehicles that are currently in our fleet.
Which one's on this list?
Which
are-
3?
yeah.
What's that?
Which ones on this list are you planning on replacing?
So I do have. So the ones that we were looking at giving to the government center would be vehicle number 1, which is a 2010 Chevy Tahoe. We've had that in our fleet since
95,000, that's probably, yeah.
It's a
Well,
rock solid vehicle, though, I'll tell you that.
What about vehicle 12? It's got 183,000 miles. That seems to be twice as many miles.
That's our transport van. So now that we got the two vans outfitted, the new ones that we got the last 2 years, I'm gonna have Patty surplus those out. So the two that we're gonna look at giving the government center that we could give away would be vehicle number 1 and then vehicle number 6.
Okay, so you said you're getting 3, so you get, with,
Yeah, so those two would be going over to the government center.
okay.
And then we have 3 cars, or actually 2 more cars, number 10 and number 12, and those are our 2 vans. The ones that we're gonna surplus those out.
So you're getting, you've gotten rid of one and then you're gonna get rid of another
Yeah,
one?
I actually have both. We have to take the equipment out of the other
So the
ones.
patrol vehicles, the 3 vehicles, there are 2 patrol vehicles and 1 transport van? Is that more accurate to say?
Well, so we're technically getting rid of 4 cars, 1,
Okay.
6,
2 vans.
2 vans and 2 cars.
And a Tahoe and an Explorer.
And then what we'll do is we'll move one of our current deputy vehicles and move it into the jail fleet. So when the transporters are just running people, we're just using,
Regular cars.
yeah, another,
Could,
yep.
like that Explorer or something, be made available if, the state's attorney's office feels they need a vehicle so bad? I think
Well-
it'd be much more appropriate to get a used vehicle for them than buy a brand new one.
Well, I think what I'm hearing the sheriff say is vehicle number 1 and vehicle number 6 would come over here. And if they, right?
Yep.
And then that would make those 2 vehicles, in addition to the other 3 vehicles out here, available to the state's attorney's office to go on their 2 trips to Deadwood and their 1 trip to the bar convention.
We got at least, don't we have like 4 or 5 vehicles over here? And I agree with what you're saying. I'd like to see a better management of our fleet than what we have now. And I
Well, could-
understand people want dedicated vehicles, but if a vehicle is not being used and somebody needs it, I don't know why they can't. That's how every other fleet does it. And
Or why couldn't we just pick one of these vehicles and say, the state's attorney's office could use that one?
Yeah.
We already own it, why buy another
Well,
one?
that's.
That's
maybe
Plus,
what we're talking about.
the only problem that I see is there's not enough parking over there now, but to park another vehicle, just to park another vehicle is silly.
I would agree, why spend 50, 60,000 to buy a vehicle when we have, we're not gonna get a whole lot for these vehicles we already own. It's good use of taxpayer dollars. won't it?
Well, and I understand that the state's attorney doesn't want to apparently drive his own vehicle to Deadwood, but he gets reimbursed for the mileage, so if the vehicles out here aren't good enough, then drive your own vehicle that you prefer. 6 of one, half a dozen
It
of
would
the other.
probably be better if they're transporting juveniles to school to have a county vehicle as opposed to a personal vehicle as well.
And these vehicles that we have in our fleet, obviously I just gave you a little copy of what our,
We could use the
vehicle-
transport van to pick up all the truant children.
Yeah, there
That-
we go.
That
well,
would
we-
seem to
Maybe we
work.
and we
should
were
keep
using, we actually were using vehicle number 12 with the state's attorney's office when they had talked about us helping. We had one of our transporters helping with the truancy thing. So that was the van that we were currently,
Do you
They were
think that would be the
Is,
best one to
is that
keep?
one, is that a big 15-passenger van, or is
no,
that
this one's
smaller?
a little mini Dodge Caravan. It's
Well,
actually probably
You should
been-
throw them in the back of the transport
number
van so
12.
they get a taste of what life could be like.
Yeah. Just put your seatbelt on.
Yeah.
But that van there, it's actually been pretty rock solid. We do, so the sheet that I scanned in for you guys here, that's our vehicle inventory, and then we have maintenance that's done through the CAD system. So any oil changes, tire rotations, battery replacement, all that stuff has been documented. So the vehicles, they're used as patrol vehicles, but they are also well maintained. And when we did the take-home car program, the deputy, you can see in my maintenance budget line for this year, they haven't been in the shop that often. And personally, if I wanted to get rid of one car, it'd be number 8. It's a hybrid. but I don't feel like that's gonna be helpful for any government. If it's got a bigger battery in it, so if it sits out in the parking lot, it's gonna be in the shop more often than not. So I'm gonna rotate that one to the jail, so those guys are always making, if it's a one-person run, they can just use that car,
Okay.
so.
That number 6, you said you give that to the Director of Equalization? Or I mean.
Well, just the government,
government
those are the ones that I'd be able to get rid of at this time, yeah.
Geez, those have a lot of miles though on them.
But they're
Are
not
they still
driving
good?
very far.
Yeah.
Well, you look at our van, our
My vehicle's
caravan, it's got
187,000 miles on it.
So they're driving around town in a car with 99,000 miles, who cares? They're driving around town.
Mr. Chair, I'd propose maybe appoint a committee to work this out, you know, on some other time, but I think there's a lot of valid points that everybody brings up,
Yeah.
and I think utilizing these higher mileage cars for just in Yankton County, I think that's a great idea. Worst case, there is this problem, you're 5 minutes away, you know, as opposed to taking a high mileage car across the state. So I think that's a good point Wanda brings up.
Because I think the last Explorer we gave over here had 120,000 miles on it, so.
My van I drive every day has 200,000 on it, so.
Yeah, as long as you,
I
as
think
long
it's,
as you
I think
maintain,
it's the maintenance.
yeah, as long as
Yeah,
you maintain
absolutely.
the vehicles and you take care of them, so. But anyways, state bid, vehicles, obviously, everything's going up. So I'm waiting for the new state bid to come through. I'm anticipating it's gonna be between 45 and 50,000 for a new vehicle, because the Durangos we ordered 2 years ago, those are about 42,000. That was back in 2023.
Preston, these, are all these that you need, or would it be possible instead of doing 3 vehicles, you think you could do 2? Is there, you know, cause we're asking everybody to make any cuts you can, is this require, I mean, where are you at on that? I know
When
I
the
think-
budget's
when I-
pretty tight.
I think
but
what he's saying is, can you use a program vehicle?
Yeah, so when I took office, I believe we already had about 15 vehicles at the sheriff's office, so I've only increased it by, 4. So, and that was,
Only.
yeah, but that was to give a take-home vehicle to the deputy, so that way, when they have to respond to a call, they start their shift at home, they end the shift at home, they're working 12-hour days. So I did increase the vehicle amounts, but it was, compared to what we had, we only had 4 marked cars in the fleet. But we had 15 vehicles.
Yeah.
But now we have a lot of marked cars. So if people say, hey, I saw a deputy, man, they're everywhere. Well, that's because I'm driving a marked car. I drove one today.
Yeah.
So, as your elected official, I feel like it's my obligation to drive a marked vehicle. Sometimes I'm going home and somebody blows a 4-way stop. I'm in a marked car. I'm gonna make the traffic stop, so. And I've done that before, and my wife got mad saying, hey, we got places to go, but I said, I'm driving a marked car, I can't put my blinders on, so that was my promise to the voters, is that we are gonna be more visible in the county, and we already had majority of the vehicles here.
Yeah.
And we maintain them, and
So
I think
you're
up
telling us you need 3 then, is that what you're?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and so,
And I'm saying that because I'd encourage you to listen to that summer study as Representative Odenbach from District 31 specifically called out county sheriffs on driving Chevy Tahoes and having too many vehicles. So I
Oh,
guess
really?
he knows how to keep Yankton County safe better than you do, according to him. So
well, and he's right,
But
they're
that's-
kinda 2010
yeah.
vehicle number 1.
that's the scrutiny though, we're under at our level is I guess local control is somebody from Lawrence County telling you how to keep
Yeah.
your county safe, so.
Well, and it's easier too, we're a regionalized county, I would say, because we have
Yeah,
Human Services Center, because, it's not
Yeah.
uncommon for the Union County Sheriff to say, hey, I need a transport from Lewis and Clark Behavioral, the core center,
yeah,
out to HSC. Instead of having one of my deputies drive all the way over to Yankton to drive from the hospital to the HSC, can one of your guys do it? So, but being regionalized also keeps us very busy. But if you look at, and I'll talk about it maybe later on here in the budget, our repairs and maintenance we're only at 16%, we're halfway through the year, and I think that,
What number are you on?
well, that's, I'll talk about it here in a second, so.
Are you
If
going
you
forward
move
or
to
back?
page 5,
Okay.
page 5.
Before you get started, what did you use as your percentage for, did you
Oh,
use
for salaries,
steps?
that's gonna be
Yeah.
on the next page after this one.
What number did you use, I guess I'm asking?
Go to page 5,
4%?
yeah, 4%.
Okay. I'm marking that on all of these.
Yep.
Thank you.
So if you go page 5, this is the sheriff's office budget. And what I was just talking about was repairs and maintenance. So if you go from, so in 2025, I budgeted for 33,000 for maintenance cares for the vehicles. I think year-to-date, which is not on your sheet, but I have one that was printed off in June, we're at 16% of that budget being used because we went to the take-home car program. So the deputies are more responsible. They don't just beat the crap out of a car. It's their vehicle. They take care of it. There's more accountability.
There's policies about to work, back to work, there's no personal business.
I did
assume-
update the policy manual for the sheriff's office for the deputies to take care of their vehicles. They gotta keep them clean. We do vehicle inspections. So,
Okay. As far as fuel, I know you contract with the city. Would there be any savings, say, if you got it at the highway shop, or was it a wash? I know the.
I think I checked into that,
Yeah.
when, you and I had
Yeah.
talked before, and I believe it's, and Patty knows that, it just, they pay so much that's
Probably the same.
contracted, so then
Yeah.
the city just charges us.
I mean, I'm sure that their contract with fuel is similar to ours, and then it's a lot closer rather
Yeah.
than driving out.
Well, and then.
But we're
if
looking
you
at
think about it,
options.
yeah,
We're looking at
if you think
options
about it
too.
too, you got a mile road from,
Yeah.
31st to
Yeah.
where the highway department is.
Mhm.
It's all gravel.
Yeah.
So if the deputy doesn't have to drive, cause they fill up their cars every shift.
Yeah,
Make sure they're topped off, so that way we're not running around with,
Yeah.
quarter tank of gas. But if they drive that mile strip or three-quarter mile, now they just got their car dirty, and then we have to do a car wash, and then,
yeah.
which we do sometimes in the Bay
They should
area.
be driving on gravel roads anyway.
Yeah, and we do. But I mean, if they're at the end of their shift, then they're driving on a gravel road for,
I know the assessor's office, Gary, do you fill up at the highway too when you use the car?
That should be something that if we're getting all of these vehicles, that committee you put together, I think that'd be a valid point rather than us buying fuel like at a gas station, filling vehicles up either at the city or at the county shop where we have that low contracted price. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
we've just never set it up for
Yeah,
other
yeah.
departments, so I've never been able to do
Yeah.
that.
I think
We
that'd
have
be a
the
good-
director of
be a good
equalization
proposal.
does, and, the emergency management used to, and so did at one point the planning, zoning.
Yeah,
'Cause
Yeah.
then we would, at the end of the year, the highway would give me a bill, and then I would take it out of those departments.
yeah. You tell us where to fill up on gas, we'll fill up on gas
Yeah,
wherever,
yeah.
so. So still looking at page 5, I did the 4%.
Canine expense, that was a grant, right?
Yep, so if you look at,
So it's a wash.
it's, so I didn't put anything in that line because it was on the line of budget. So we're gonna do fundraising efforts. The K-9 officer's been tasked to do fundraising outside of this, budget, so that's why I put 0 for
are
that
you
one.
gonna put on the dog suit and we get a?
If it raises money, we'll see what happens, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. Could you bring the dog in for a meeting sometime?
Yeah, we
I
could.
think that'd be great for the public, just to have that visibility. so.
She's been on the radio already, so she's already famous.
Yep.
If you look at, so the one thing I noticed last year, travel training, so I added the training in there, cause last year I didn't have an opportunity to come back in and talk to you guys about this. So when the previous administration was in, they had a $10,000 travel budget. When I came in office, I moved it up to 15,000, for training and it's travel. Well, it didn't say training in the thing. So last year you guys slashed that by $5,000. But the previous administration had it at 12. So you guys actually slashed it lower than what the previous administration had. And this is, the travel training is our training for all of our officers. Because we can go to some free trainings in the state, but sometimes we have to pay for their meals or their lodging. And then also, we're also responsible to go pick up convicted people throughout the United States. And so we've entered our felony warrants into the system. So we've had a guy in California, we've had a guy down in Houston was our most recent one. So like just pick up that guy from Houston, I think was right around $900. And that was,
Did you drive or did you fly?
we flew. We're doing it's the law enforcement officers flying program. We could have the marshals do it for $3,000, or we can have our certified guy that we have internal training for that's held by the government. And so we had our jail administrator, who's a certified guy, he went down there and picked him up.
Sheriff, would there be a way to, or Patty, would there be a way to split that into travel and another line for training? Because I see what you're saying is, you know, we're really obligated to travel to get these people. And then training, yeah, I support training as well, but they're really two separate things.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could split that, Patty?
What was Mr. Houston brought back for? Seems like we could have just left him down there.
That one we checked into, we actually had a victim in the county on that one. So we talked to the state's attorney's office about
Yeah.
what's prevalent for us to go pick up and who's not. And there was a victim in the county, so
Okay.
we wanted to stand our ground and say, you hurt somebody in our county, we're gonna come get you, so.
Just one quick question.
Yep.
So did he has he had his time in court yet?
Yes.
So did they dismiss him and let him go?
That would be a question for the state's attorney's office. You can follow up on that one later on. I believe he was.
We would have
we
to have a
would've
name though.
What's it, yeah. And we would have we wouldn't have gone and picked them up if we weren't gonna prosecute them, I would say. But we can follow up on that one later on. For travel training,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
We spend $1,000, bring them up here and then let them go, is probably what.
so for travel training though, I don't know, the travel expenses is always in the same budget line for everybody's. Everybody produces a receipt, if they go to training.
I think your travel is always fundamentally different, cause that's something that you have to, it's more of prison transport as opposed to like I think that's a significant difference, because that's not a choice that you have. It's
So
a
do you
choice
want
that-
a separate line item for prisoner transport?
I think that would help for visibility and transparency in this particular case, because that's a statutory requirement that you have
Yeah.
versus, you know, cause we have heard in the past is, oh, you guys are going and educating yourself too much and you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Where that is not something you can say no to.
Yeah.
So they're really, in my opinion, two different things,
Yeah.
and if we could break them, that'd be big.
And then especially, if you wanna do inmate
Or inmate
transports or something,
like that,
you know,
yeah.
I don't care. But the reason why I went to the law enforcement flying while armed, because if I was to send a guy down to Houston, Texas, there'd be multiple hotel rooms along the way, plus I have to send 2 people, cause
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect one of our transporters who's maybe 50, you know, just drive by himself and.
Well, then you gotta stop someplace where there's a jail so you can put.
Yeah, so, and that would be two,
Have
yeah,
the-
usually 2
have
people.
the inmate drive halfway. right?
This way I did and it's a faster process. We get them there, we get them back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So does our guy go or just some random person under this program?
nope, they have to, so our transporters can't even fly. It's gotta be a certified law enforcement officer. So,
I guess my question is, do we have one or do we get one from like Sioux Falls?
nope, all of ours are done by our own people now.
Okay.
Yep. And the marshal service, which pay us for the jail, we'll get to later, they offer a service for them to go pick up somebody for us and bring them back. But yeah, so if you know what we make on the marshals, just imagine what they'll be making back on us. Now, we don't travel that often, but it can be costly. I mean, I could come over budget because we had 5 people out of state that we had to go pick up, you know. But any questions on the sheriff's budget parts? Yeah, and like I said, the K-9 one, I cut $0 on that one because our anticipation of just fundraising for the K-9 program, that was my promise to the taxpayers, that it was a fully funded grant, which we didn't pay for, and we were gonna do some fundraising.
Preston, are you, Are you gonna be getting any more grants for the dog?
For the dog? Nope, this should be it. The rest of it would just be fundraising.
I got an idea for that too.
So does the handler pay for the food?
Um,
Or is fundraising pay for the food?
The grant actually paid for the year of the food, and then I believe Lesterville or a place in Sioux City, there's a canine program where they fund all the food for canines across the country. And Lesterville does the one right now for Bonhomme, so there's different avenues we can go.
We gotta
Even-
change that, right?
Yeah, I know, people start eating dog food now. I don't know. So, any questions on page 5?
I have a question on page 6.
All right, we'll get to page 6.
Your part-time deputy prisoner transport, that's just all of them combined, not just one guy.
Yep, it's everybody combined.
How many of those guys you got a number of them, right?
For
At least
trans,
3.
well, transporters, we got at least, I think, 8 total, but some are very part-time, so if we're in a pinch.
Well, and that's great that you have those people willing to do that on, like, almost on an on-call basis, and rather having a dedicated person that just sits around and then transport them. So I think that's very economical for that many people to do that. So
Yeah, and that's,
that's a good program.
yeah. And then, yeah,
Longevity pay.
longevity, yeah, that one really took a huge increase, I'm just kidding. So, yeah, and obviously the overtime, just the increase, just in case of the overtime, but administration, we're all salaried, so there's not any.
What was your overtime last year? Do you have that?
I don't have that number, I guess I can get that.
Do you have an estimate of what it was?
An estimate?
Yeah,
Oh,
because I know you do your best to avoid it, but, you know, there are circumstances that,
the way that our scheduling is,
Yeah.
we try to avoid the overtime, as much as possible,
okay.
but you can,
Sometimes you gotta do it, you know,
Yeah.
something happens at the end of a shift or whatnot, so.
yeah.
What's this new thing on page
All right,
7?
page 7. So, so in 2026, the Yankton County Jail would like to expand our resources by helping prevent any potential suicides, overdoses, and other health medical issues within the county jail. So in the attachment here, what this program is, so Clay County, for example, they had an in-custody death. Not saying that we're planning on having one, or we have one, or whatever, but with a regionalized facility like the Core Center, or HSC, where we do these mental health holds, we have people that come into the jail, and they may not be held after they're released out of our custody, because they say, well, we talked to them, now that they're sober, we're releasing them, so they walk out of the county jail. But a lot of times, people that come in are maybe detoxing from any drugs or alcohol. And so this monitoring system that we're looking at, a lot of jails have gone to now where it's HIPAA compliant, it monitors, actually it came out when COVID hit. So it checks your heart rate and all that other stuff while you're in the jail cell. So that way, you don't have somebody who's detoxing. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that our jail staff doesn't check on people, because we do. They're required to do checks.
They also have cameras.
Yes, and we do have cameras. But a lot of times, if somebody's come in and they lay down and they're sleeping, you can't see their chest rise or lower when they're in the jail cell. They could be sleeping on the floor, too. They could be sleeping underneath a bunk. I have no idea.
So what is this? Is this like a watt, or what is this system then exactly?
So,
It's a sensor system.
yeah, so
Where does that, like, is it a necklace or something on
it's
their wrist? or-
essentially built inside the ceiling of the cell, and it monitors heart rates and stuff all wirelessly. So it's not,
It's
really-
like a
it's like a Wi,
sprinkler,
it's like your Wi-Fi.
sprinkler thing.
Yeah, it's like your Wi-Fi, just,
And would need this in every one of the rooms?
no. We would only
Just
install, the reason why we put in the 50,000 would be, and I think we can use some, opioids money for this too, as part of it. That's why I was kinda asking the other day about the opioids
For
fund.
what, for what?
For this program that would be installed in the jail cell,
Would
for
this just be
monitoring.
the padded room?
To
or
make
the
sure
cell
they're
room?
still
Yeah,
alive.
padded room for sure, and we wouldn't even
Make
have,
sure the prisoner's
we were
still
just looking at the
alive,
whole booking area,
breathing.
you know, cause there are a lot of people, that's where people get moved in and out, and if they're on a mental health hold, they may not be stuck in the padded room because that's already being occupied by, you know,
Somebody else.
another frequent flyer, I don't know.
Is this in addition to your budget that's already set up, or?
Yep, I added it.
Okay.
Let's-
But then you have that, revenue from the jail building.
Yep, and,
I mean, there's quite a bit of money.
yeah, and I wasn't sure if I could do that or not, but, I think we could probably
Just for
take it
the
out of
jail,
capital.
yeah.
Yep.
I
for
thought
jail
the
improvements.
jail administrator was looking to see if he could get a grant from the Attorney General's drug slush fund.
Possibly. It just takes a little time. So if I don't do it in the budget process now,
Sorry, Patty.
then
Yeah.
I'm up a creek.
Patty's gonna
creek
look
connection.
and get the, I guess I'm okay with it if we can take it out of the jail fund, but if it can't come out of the fund or a grant, you know, I don't know if, it's a noble project, but I don't know if this is the year for something like that, if we had to budget it separately.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, like you're
You
saying,
need-
you get these people in and you don't, I mean, know what they're on, or.
Yeah, these people, like I
Yeah.
said, the course, like, we have the regionalized course center.
Yeah.
We get people from, like, I gave you an example of Davison County, on a furlough, went to the Lewis and Clark,
I heard about that.
threatens the staff and themselves, and then they get put on a mental health hold, and then guess whose problem that is?
Yeah, and
The
county
Yankton
has to pay
counties,
for it.
and then that person, can't go to HSC right away, and Avera and Sioux Falls won't take them. So then guess what happens? They go to the Yankton County Jail. And we wanna be good neighbors to our Lewis and Clark behavioral, under
Yeah.
statute that we're, you know, we can hold them for a mental health hold, but like I said, sometimes they're just in our facility, and then a QMHP comes down and talks to that individual, and then they say, I'm no longer mentally ill, and then they let them walk out the jail.
Well, they say I'm not dangerous.
Yeah, I'm not dangerous.
Right into the community.
So,
They
yeah.
all say they're not mentally ill.
So the only thing in that one is I added the 50,000 for all booking, cells in our booking area.
That's total, not per
Yep.
each.
No, that's for the total.
Okay.
And if that comes out of capital, you can subtract 50,000 out of the, maintenance and contracts. You got a verdict?
690,000.
Oh, there you go. So if you wanna do it that way, we can,
I would, I mean, because since that's dedicated for things like this, I'd feel much more comfortable doing
yeah.
it.
Well, we can, yeah, you can scratch it off.
Okay.
So, but that tells.
I want it to come out of grant money.
Well, yeah, grant money first, and
Yeah.
this other one's.
And maybe there is, I know with the K-9, for us to keep going back to the AG's office and asking for more than four, but this would be for 2026. But if a capital will allow us to do it,
He's running for office, he should.
Yeah, there-
Yeah, this is maybe the year to do it.
yeah, ask for what we can.
Yeah.
So page 8. Well, I just talked about that, so maintenance and contracts, which would be 42520. I mean, if you wanna slash 50,000 out of there, you certainly can.
We'll Patty, how, if we were gonna take it out of the jail fund, would you still want it in this budget, or how would you wanna do that?
No,
Okay.
I could give him the.
I'll just
So-
submit it separately.
Let's do a mark that we're gonna knock this one down by 50,000, cause I think that's a better way to do it, taken out of that fund that Patty
Yep.
suggested.
I'll
So
give it to you, either email it or,
just save the taxpayers
Yeah.
right there, guys.
But then there's a small monthly fee, as I understand, correct?
It's a yearly fee, I think it was
Or-
like $900 a year.
Yeah,
but
but
it's
I
better
mean,
than
but the-
900,000
But
for
that
a-
has to be in here
Yep,
somewhere.
It'd be less than
Yeah.
the lawsuit that we get.
yeah, but yeah, we can look at that.
Okay.
That's, like I said, that's no big deal. Staff,
Maintenance.
with technology, they were bringing it up, and, you know, in custody deaths are more prevalent, and, you know, we haven't had one, you know.
Forever.
Yeah, so,
Maintenance
and
contract.
the type of drugs that people are getting,
2520.
you know, comes from all over the place, and so, just an option. We don't have to do all the booking rooms either. We can just do maybe the padded room first, and then see how that goes.
Page 9?
Page 9, this is for jail salaries.
Are you doing steps and grades, or what? Oh,
So 2025 is what their current salaries are,
correct.
and then, so 2026 is what their step and grade
Is-
would be.
Okay.
Yep, with the
So-
4%.
So that's,
Plus 4%.
Yep.
that's steps and 4%, right?
Yep, so the
Okay.
2025 is currently, if they were to get a promote, or
Yeah.
like their anniversary, it's in August. I've already included what their salary already is supposed to be budgeted from last year.
Is
So-
that one step or two, or what?
Nope, these are all 1 steps. Well, actually, these are moving back a grade because the same problem EMS just had when you guys did the $1.50 raise.
Yeah.
We did it on the matrix scale, so I have to move everybody back a grade. So,
All right. Page 10.
page 10. Juvenile detention. Last year, with the rising costs, I wasn't really sure what to expect. So I put almost $500,000 in there for detention holds. I don't believe,
What have we used so far?
currently up to date. Let me look.
And that's impossible to
Yeah.
predict, I mean, yeah.
So right now, we're at 83,000, or about
83?
84,000.
Okay.
84,000, I think, right? That's the most recent one I have, but I know we just had a couple up there recently that
All right.
it's not reflecting what we've had.
And this is probably
this
good
is
through the
that-
end of May.
We've got 3 of them up there right now.
Yeah, and that's not on this one I'm reading.
No, but this is through end of May, right?
This one was end of June,
The
or
budget-
beginning of June.
But this isn't what's been collected, this is what the budget was, this isn't what normally she,
No, we're asking what the current
No, she wants to
is.
know what our
I
current,
mean, that's, I know, but that's what I'm saying, is the sheet that had it was what they're up to,
Yeah.
would be for twenty
Are,
twenty-five.
these
Yep.
are different
These aren't
sheets
on
than
this
you get from Patty, right?
I get
yeah,
it.
Patty gives me a sheet. I didn't include the up to year to date one.
'Cause
Patty,
there's-
are
there's
we
some
able
new
to get,
ones
like,
up
your,
there.
your sheets that you print for
Yeah.
this that have the
Yeah.
laws?
So I'm looking at a sheet that was printed on June 6th, and our current budget
Yeah,
usage is $83,977.92. But that was before
That was
this,
end of
this
April.
new
Yeah.
group
end of
came.
April, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
think we're
it's
all
much higher
talk-
than that now, but,
we're all talking.
Well,
the
it's
same
it's
thing.
$1,500 a day since the 6th of June.
yeah. So. Good.
Page
So-
11, I think.
All right, page 11 is 24/7 budget. I didn't really increase much there.
Is the
Just,
state grant covering this cost, or are we contributing to this?
So 2 years ago, we applied through the AG's office for the
Okay.
24/7 hour, or 24/7 grant. They awarded us 10,000, but it can only be used towards salary. We applied for the same grant this year, and all we got was 5,000.
Okay, so out
It's
of our,
5,000 more than we had.
Yeah.
so, and our
but-
total cost for last year for this was it 105,000? Am I reading
Yeah.
that right?
So I'll put it in perspective. So when I took over, we had a gal that was working there, and she was 20 hours a week.
Yeah,
I got a lot of emails from the judges because we had a lot of people on the 24/7 program, but for 20 hours a week, it's a very busy position.
yeah.
So I came to you guys last year saying, hey, it needs to be a full-time position because I'm getting a lot of emails from the judge. And to hold people accountable, they have to review videos and change out patches and listen to the sob story or how hard they worked, and that's why their patch slipped off their arm. And so we made it full-time.
That's why it's positive for meth.
Yeah.
Because they work so hard.
And the 24/7 program, when it was
That's
brought
why
out.
they're working so hard.
Yeah. When it was brought out, it was to keep people accountable, but
Yeah.
keeping them out of our jail and allowing people to not lose their jobs.
Yeah,
So it's played a positive aspect in the community and the county,
yeah.
but it does come with a cost.
And I don't disagree with any of that, but I'll have Senator Nelson listen to this. It's like, again, it's an unfunded mandate
Yep.
placed onto us by the court, costs us 100,000, and then we get 10,000 back. So now we have to levy the citizens of Yankton County and increase their property taxes to pay for this program.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't, you know, the state's got
I know,
billions of dollars, you know, why couldn't a portion of video lottery go for this? Or the 50% of the funding that the state gets for alcohol, how about they fund this program, cause this is a direct
Because they don't
result.
tax methamphetamine.
Well, but a lot of this would be alcohol related too. 24/7, nobody goes on 24/7 for alcohol?
Some do,
The-
but
well,
the,
yeah,
but the
but-
majority of it is people that need to
Well, if
stay
you look-
out
if-
of jail.
I agree,
you
but
For
why
drugs.
couldn't some of the alcohol fund that the state of South Dakota collect pay for this program that is resulted from that? That's what I'm getting at.
I agree with both of you here.
Yeah.
So, top of page 11, I just did the 2024 statistics here. So for breathalyzing, we had up to 193 people on the PBTs. That was over 25,000 tests in the year that they did. So that's a person coming in 2 times a day, blowing in the machine or whatever, and then we got the scram bracelets, 65 clients, but some people like to extend their stays by doing, the program is so good, I want to keep on it.
Yeah.
That part, so these are funded back, so the person that's on
Pays.
scram or PBT, they have to pay. So we do get some recoup costs back. Then the patch, you know, you had 136 people on the patch. So over 2,000 patches were placed on people's arms all last year. And they, UAs, they don't do those as much anymore because it takes a lot more time for somebody to pee in a cup and then send it to the state health lab to get it back, the results 2 or 3 months later, and have that person already prosecuted through the court system. Maybe.
Is remote breath, was that when like somebody's out of town or something?
So we just started the remote breath, and that's for people that, let's just say if they live up by Lesterville, instead of having them drive down to Yankton 2 times a day for their breathalyzer, they're paying for the remote breath
A
system.
little machine.
It's a machine, it's,
Okay.
so they blow into it, takes their picture.
Okay, okay.
So that's fairly new, but that's a total cost onto those people. Some people will pay for the conveniency of it.
Under tangible goods, furniture
Page-
spelled
page
wrong.
12.
What's that?
Under tangible goods, furniture is spelled wrong
Oh. We will get that
on all
fixed.
pages.
Oh,
You'll get it next time.
yeah, we'll get it next time. Thanks. Furbiture. Actually, I'm a technology guy, so I was able to move the Excel spreadsheet or the paper copy that Patty gave me, and I was able to input it into Excel without having to redo all of it. But I will correct that, thank you. I did put, last year you guys cut some travel out of hers. There's
where?
travel requirement for 24/7. They have like a, you guys cut that one completely last year. So those are ones that are just sticking
What,
in my head.
oh, 26,
For 24/7, page 11.
All right.
She usually they go to Chamberlain, I think, they have a conference.
Page 12.
Page 12, so this one's kind of out of my control. This is where,
This, I already have this in the cities.
yeah.
Do we?
I do this one.
The only reason I'm part of this is because I stamp the bills
Yeah.
that come through on like Golden West.
What's the total revenue that we're projected to, well, what was the revenue last year? And then with that increase, do we know what the 2026 revenue is gonna be?
This year with that increase from for the E911 charge, we're averaging like 32,000 a month.
Okay. What did we bring in last year on that charge? Do we have that information?
I don't have the,
And what I'm saying is I'd like to know what's brought in, what's, you know, are we paying more than what's brought in?
So
It shouldn't be.
the city of Yankton actually runs the
Yeah,
dispatch
yeah,
center,
yeah.
so they pay all the employees. I think, she'll get the number, but whatever money comes in from the PSAP
Yeah,
out of the state goes into our fund,
Yeah,
and then I'm stamping,
yeah,
the 911 phone lines that we have to pay for, required by.
yeah.
Law.
I'm just making sure we're not contributing more than we're getting to.
We're
to
not,
the-
to my knowledge, I don't think, we're just taking the money from what the state of South Dakota gives the county.
From the left hand to the right
And then
hand.
the city of Yankton supplements that budget.
Okay,
So
good.
when they came in last year, I think they were just asking for what the 911 funds allowed
Yeah.
for them.
Because, yeah, that's very limited what we can spend that on.
Yeah,
But it all has to do with E E911.
Yeah.
yes, E911, yeah.
Yeah, well, last year we received 294,000.
Okay.
I'm filling out the revenue, and I'm, approximately, I put 380,000.
So how much did we spend then? So if we brought in 294, just curious what the expenses were. So yours doesn't have the expenses on there.
Yeah, I didn't put that one on, because it's usually by May.
Yeah.
Is when it's added in there, so,
282,000.
Okay, so we're under, so I'm happy with that.
yeah. So it's basically all the money that gets
Yeah.
transferred from the
Yeah,
state.
That's fine. All right, I don't have any questions on that one.
Any questions for me?
No,
If you do, you got my,
we're gonna have some hard decisions. I know you got a pretty big budget, but, you know, we're gonna try to run the numbers, and if we are gonna need cuts, I mean, if there's absolutely anything you can live without, we'll probably have to have that conversation. We hope we don't, but, you know, we're asking everybody to, and you did a good job on yours, everybody to, do what they can, so,
yeah, like I said,
Appreciate that.
being regionalized
yeah.
in South Dakota, that makes it a little tougher for us, because we're statutorily required to be here.
Yeah, yeah.
We haven't been fully staffed in the jail,
For a while.
yeah, for a while, and, even with the allowed positions that we have, a lot of it has to go to overtime, just because people have to cover shifts, and then,
Yeah.
they'll probably enjoy it more if the big, beautiful bill gets passed,
Yeah.
because of the overtime thing.
Yeah.
And then our, deputy sheriff positions, we were 2 openings. Like I said, 2 of them had left to become small-town chiefs in South Dakota. And then, one of our other deputies is deployed overseas, so Jordan Maxon, we want to thank him for his service, and
Yep.
he'll be gone for a year, so hopefully he'll get back in time and be back to hit the streets.
Where did he end up going?
He's over in, I believe, Afghanistan for 1 year. But, I think he was doing some training here before he leaves, and
Okay.
so,
Well, I hope he's safe if you talk to him, so.
yeah, you bet. We plan on sending him probably a care package at some point.
Oh, I have a question. Is the county doing that appreciation again this year?
Oh, yes.
Do we know when it is?
Yes, I talked to John about that, and October 16th is the date that I've already reserved Rock Bottom, or R&B Burgers, sorry, for us for that venue, and then one of our vendors is going to pay for the meals again, up to a certain amount, so I'll talk to you about that later on.
Yeah.
Turned out pretty good.
We had it last year, and we had 126 attended.
Yep.
And it was all paid for by vendors that work with the county, so.
What date did you say, Preston?
October 16th. So you take your wife on a nice meal night.
Jail food, right?
Oh, yeah, I told them no jail food, but they say the chili's pretty good back there, I don't know. I declined. So, but if you guys got questions, you can feel free to call me, email me. I got 2 emails, so you can send one to either email, I'll get one of them.
Sounds good.
Thank you,
So,
Sheriff.
Thank
all right,
you.
Thank you.
Nancy up?
Nancy. Sheriff said he was last, but it's actually you.
Yep. You got a handout for us or anything?
I have handouts, but I'm not exactly sure what you're wanting or needing, so should I need to hand you things,
Sure.
I will get to that point.
Thank you.
But, Nancy,
I had called yesterday and asked what was left on the YES program, and they had said that, he gave me that, so that's what I put in you for budget, and
yeah, and the exact dollar amount that Brian gave you was?
18,000.
$18,000. So essentially, what I was here to do was with that $18,000 was just to ask you to follow through on Yankton County Commission 2717 action that was taken to provide funding to Yankton Area Progressive Growth in a 5-year pledge that was made. So this is the remaining amount. Several years ago, we were asked when we came here to present if we would take that in smaller increments and divide that over time, and we absolutely agreed to do that. So that is just what the request is, the remaining amount on that pledge made with Action 1761 back in 2017. And that was before my time at the organization. So I don't know exactly how that was all presented to the commission that was in place at the time, but I can provide a verbal kind of accounting or list of things that happened through that Yes 3 campaign. You are the only outstanding pledge left in that campaign. As you know, we are now in our Yes 4 campaign, and spending those dollars that are committed to community projects going forward.
Did we make a commitment for Yes 4?
No, when we talked to the county about that, of what would we do with Yes 3, Yes 4, we had decided at that point, until the Yes 3 pledge was completed, there was no point in talking about a Yes 4 pledge. So no, you have not made a Yes 4 pledge as a county.
So at this point, we are $18,000 in arrear with the Yes 3, and then we're paid up to Thrive or the
Correct.
commission.
Yep, there's no other commitments that have been made, no other pledges outstanding.
And you're not requesting any funding for those at this time?
For a new
For
commitment?
moving forward, yes.
No, I'm
Or
not
the-
asking for that.
Okay.
I'm more than happy at this point in time to have the initial pledge in place, commitment paid. And just so you know, I'll just go through a few of those things of what we did with some of those dollars from that pledge. That was a campaign that was really focused on quality of life in Yankton. So there was $250,000 that went into the Huther Family Aquatic Center. There was continued growth out at Westbrook Estates. There was $1 million invested in Mount Marty's Fieldhouse. There was $250,000 invested into the Boys and Girls Club. Other activities that happened at that during that campaign, Great Plains Processing purchased the spec building and started their operations here in Yankton. A high school internship program was established. We provided a $2,000 grant to the EMS training and education. Parker Hannafin had an expansion. Dakota Protein was constructed. Connecting Cultures was created. Applied Engineering expanded. Mount Marty University built a new residence hall. There was renovations on Walnut Street. There was a new water treatment plant. The UPS distribution facility moved to Yankton. Northwestern Energy built a new facility in Yankton. There was an updated housing study, and there was development of townhomes out in the Fox Run area.
Was the Walnut Street renovations, was that for the brewery?
No, that was all of the renovations that happened where the city did some improvements on the plaza at the Meridian Bridge and all of those. So we are, I'm not at all trying to say that we invested in those, but we feel at Thrive of what we're doing within the community helps create an environment for all of these entities to continue to grow and expand.
Is there a list of projects that Thrive like financially contributed to, or do you guys consider, assistance, your contribution? I guess that's kind of what I'm curious about.
So and this is just campaigns related dollars, because we do receive $460,000 annually from the city of Yankton that fund our tourism department, as well as the Office of Economic Development. That's how that partnership works with those funds. So the money that the county contributed through the pledges went to Fieldhouse, Boys and Girls Club, the expansion of Westbrook Estates out there, and the Aquatic Center. That's what that campaign was for, as well as funding workforce development. All of the work that's done through, when Rita Nelson was here, through Workforce Development, her entire budget came out of capital campaign funding. So all of the work done through Workforce is funded.
How much did we contribute, you know, I guess that, what was the contribution for like Westbrook Estates and then either the field house, do you have rough numbers on that, or?
Yeah,
is
the
it
field
just-
house wasn't, I don't know what your portion of
Oh,
it, we don't
okay,
break
you
down our
don't break it
pledges
down,
that
okay.
way. We just
Okay.
make a commitment out of the dollars we
Okay.
have available, because that campaign goal was 2.7 million,
Mm-hmm.
and we raised 2.8 million for that campaign, which ran from 2017 to 2021.
Cause like the field house, that's, you know, Mount Marty College, it's a nonprofit, so that's, you know, we're based on property tax, so that, you know, doesn't really help us. And then, you know, the Westbrook Estates, there was a TIF on that one as well, correct?
Correct.
For the county.
And that's
so-
still in place,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, and just from, you know, I guess, at least my point of view from the county is, we want development, but when it has all these, TIFs on there, you know, that's really would be the growth for the county, and that's not realized for 2 decades down the road, so when a TIF happens, you know, my concern is that we still have all the costs at the county level. You know, Director of Equalization still has to assess it, you know, zoning is out there. They still pay bills to the treasurer, the auditor gets it and then has to redistribute it. So there is still a cost to us, but then we aren't receiving that growth for much, much later, so.
Well, I will say that the assessor assesses projects that are non-TIF related as well.
Yeah.
So it's not that there's additional assessment work because they're
Yeah.
TIFed. They
Yeah.
do that work for all the companies. And if
Yeah.
you wanted to take a look at it of, if you don't want to say you helped with Mount Marty's field house, what you can say is, we helped fund Rita's budget with workforce development, and we helped employ more people in Yankton, which do buy homes in the county as well as in the city, and then purchase products and enjoy the lake and do a lot of other things in the community. So that's a really easy way to say, with the commitment from Yankton County, the portion that it was out of $2.8 million, you can confidently say you helped support workforce development within this community, which has returns definitely to the county. Anything else you'd like from me today?
I was just wondering if you wanted anything else from us.
Oh, I can go on as long as you'd like me to.
There any other big projects that you can talk about?
Well, right now, the biggest project that Thrive is engaged in is the development of Garden Estates. So we have 89 single-family home lots available for sale. Garden Estates is located just west of Westbrook Estates. That is also a TIF project, so there'll be a little bit of delayed gratification for city and county regarding those property tax revenues that will be coming in, but once those homes are built and that TIF is paid, that is revenue that the county will be receiving essentially forever. So while it takes 20 years to get through the TIF, there is a definite long-term return for that. So we encourage people to take a look at those lots, prices starting at $36,500 per lot. And there are a few other manufacturing expansions that are in conversation for equipment. They're not necessarily increasing their footprint, but the last one we talked about had about $30 million of new equipment coming in, and that is not the Manitou project. That will be a new project.
Is anything happening with, I know at one point there was talk about helping to build some living units kind of out there by that building that expanded, and I can't right now put my finger on it.
So are you talking out on Whiting Drive?
Yes.
Out by Manitou? Yes.
Yes.
So that is a project that Thrive is working on. Manitou donated approximately 6 acres for us to build some multifamily housing out there. There is a project planned for 126 housing units out there. We have not kicked that off the ground yet. We have all the infrastructure in place, and we did utilize the South Dakota Housing Grant funding to help fund the infrastructure for that. We are looking at the timing of what else is happening in the community.
Is it on pause?
Well, it will still happen because there's grant money tied to that. We're just looking at the timing of Blue Stem coming on, Gurney Flats coming on, the Links, which is some other apartment units that are happening just south of the Fox Stop out there in the Fox Run area. Dan Johannesson is working on that project. So there's a lot of projects coming online. And then the Simples layoff caused a little bit of a curveball for all of us. And so that project on Whiting Drive will happen, but your phrase of keep having it on pause probably does make an accurate representation of what's happening right now.
Do you know what the number of units that are rented, for example, in the Gurney Flats?
Yeah, Gurney Flats, last I had talked to them, which was probably about a month ago now, they had 60% leased up.
And what about the one out by Menards?
They are still completing those units out at Blue Stem. We did a tour out there about a month ago, and I do not have the exact percentage, but they are currently leasing up, and they did have tenants living out there already, but all of the buildings are not yet completed.
Yeah, it does seem like in buildings 1 and 2, there are things out on the decks.
Yeah, you can see people enjoying their properties out there, yes.
So are they gonna, like, maybe hope that lake gets filled up and stays full, or are they just gonna let weeds grow up in that one too?
I think
The-
that's
the
a
water
pond-
diversion
water
pit.
retention.
I know, but it would be very nice if that was full of water and maybe some fish floating around in there.
Then you'd have to have it bigger.
Because it's actually holding water,
And we're talking the
Not like-
detention area in front of Blue Stem?
yes.
Yeah.
That would be a city of Yankton conversation. I don't have anything to
just-
do
I'm
with
just
that.
saying it
And
would be
and I
nice.
don't drive by it very often, so I could not have even told you there was
That
standing
one actually
water.
holds water, not like the West Side Park.
Yeah.
Well, it's built to detain and then push through.
So it would push through the fish, so.
But thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thanks, Nancy.
Do we want to do another public comment or
Certainly.
I
or
think
do
we
we
have,
want
Time
to,
for-
do
time
we want to
for-
have any discussion or what do we want to do?
I think we're waiting on income, aren't we?
Well,
Yes.
Before
I'll
we
try to get
just,
that done for Monday.
before we do much discussion?
are there other departments? I mean, we did extension, but we didn't do 4-H. Are those separate? Those are separate usually, aren't they?
Well, no, they're with extension.
Okay.
She's on vacation.
Ryan, and like I said, I don't, she's not gonna be here. She's gonna be quitting. I
So,
mean, why would,
so
because
we're
it's
gonna,
gonna be up to you guys anyway.
We need to put them on the list for,
We what?
we have them in the book.
Yeah, they're in the
So-
book.
Well, Ryan.
And Ryan will
You
talk.
can do that on Monday, but
'Cause-
I don't think Katie has to be here, do you, or?
No, she
No.
doesn't have to be here. She's not staying.
and then that money we contribute now to soil conservation, where is that coming out? Is that coming out of the
That's
commission?
It's an
Organi-
other, way at the
Other?
end.
Organizations of
Other
at the
organizations?
end.
And then, you know,
They sent a request for 30,000.
and then all of our external agencies that we give money to are, they're gonna
They're in
come
there.
in?
On Monday.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay. Good for final public comment? Public comment is open. Anyone want to speak their mind at the end of this meeting?
Move we adjourn.
Seeing none?
Second.
Public comment is closed. A motion by Don, second by Wanda to adjourn. We are adjourned.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, nay?
Good job, John. That's pretty quick. You did a good job.
I'm just wondering if,
We need
are you gonna wait to discuss the revenue part to tell everybody what you're gonna
Bob, you didn't
give
talk.
for,
Too late now.